Today's video is for anyone who wants to eat healthy, nutrient-dense foods on a really tight budget. There are a lot of foods that have the reputation of being health food, but are they right and what aren't they telling you? We're gonna cover all that coming up next. Hi, I'm Michelle, the Frugal Farm Wife, and on this channel we like to talk about how to live and eat healthy on a tight budget. We especially love talking about ways to save money on groceries. There are a lot of foods that have the reputation of being health food, but they often have a higher price point, and it's more than most people can comfortably fit in their budget. So in this video, we're going to see if we can find some alternatives that'll fit better in your budget. First, let's talk about almond butter and peanut butter. Almond butter is often considered to be the healthier alternative, and it's usually more expensive than peanut butter. We're going to see if almond butter is really worth it. When we're looking at 1 tablespoon of almond butter, we're looking at about 98 calories, 9 grams of fat, 1 milligram of sodium, 3 grams of carbs, and 3.4 grams of protein for a price of about $6.25 per pound. When we're looking at a tablespoon of peanut butter, we're looking at about 94 calories, 8 grams of fat, 2.5 milligrams of sodium, 3 grams of carbs, and 4 grams of protein for a price of about 91 cents per pound. That's a significant difference. As you can see, they really don't differ that much nutritionally, so if you're trying to save money, it just makes sense to opt for peanut butter. Now, let's talk about grass-fed meat versus grain-fed meat. The 3 most common types of meat consumed in the United States are beef, pork, and poultry. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to talk about grass-fed beef in this video. So what is the actual difference between grasses and grains? Well, I'm glad you asked. Grains are the fruit produced by grasses. For example, corn is a grass. It's only the corn seed or the kernel produced by the corn plant that is actually a grain. So this chart is going to compare the nutritional value of the 2 types of beef, grass-fed and grain-fed beef. The nutritional values and pricing shown here are based on a 3.5 ounce serving of a beef sirloin steak from USDA. Grass-fed beef has protein amount of 21.8 grams, zinc 3.7 milligrams, iron 1.8 milligrams, total fat 2.9 grams, omega-3s 0.05 grams, omega-6 0.06 grams for a total price of about $15.29 per pound. Grain-fed beef has a protein amount of 22.2 grams, zinc 3.8 milligrams, iron 1.6 milligrams, total fat 5.2 milligrams, omega-3s 0.02 grams, and omega-6s 0.13 grams for a total price per pound of $8.99 per pound. Health benefits of grass-fed beef are honestly a little overhyped. If you're trying to save money on groceries, grain-fed beef is the clear winner. I know people sometimes have concerns about the animal's quality of life when they're being fed a grain-based diet, which is kind of silly because the majority of every cow's diet is grass. It's only a small portion that's truly grain, but people often associate a grain-fed diet with factory farms and feedlots and other things that seem pretty scary. So if this is a concern that you have, I highly encourage you to reach out to some farmers and ask them about their production methods. One channel that I've found really informational is Natalie Kovrick of Kovrick Cattle Company. I'll leave a link to her YouTube channel in the description below. Now let's talk about alternative milks versus traditional milk. So almond, coconut, oat, rice, and soy milks are all great options for people who can't consume dairy products. But do they provide as many quality nutrients at an affordable price as traditional milk? The information here is based on an 8 ounce serving of dairy. With almond milk, you're looking at about 30 calories per 8 ounce cup, 1 gram of protein, 2.5 grams of fat, 1 gram of carbs, and 0 grams of sugar for a price of about $5.98 per gallon. If you were to opt for coconut milk, you're looking at about 45 calories, 5 grams of protein, 4 grams of fat, 2 grams of carbs, 0 grams of sugar, for about $6.98 per gallon. Oat milk, 110 calories per glass, with 4 grams of protein, 3.5 grams of fat, 18 grams of carbs, and 7 grams of sugar, for a price of $9.98 per gallon. Rice, 120 calories per cup, with 1 gram of protein, 2.5 grams of fat, 23 grams of carbs, 10 grams of sugar, for a price per gallon of $7.98. If you were to buy soy milk, you're looking at about 90 calories per cup, 7 grams of protein, 3.5 grams of fat, 9 grams of carbs, 6 grams of sugar, for a price of about $4.58 per gallon. Now let's compare those to traditional dairy, which is about 120 calories per cup, with 8 grams of that being protein, 5 grams being fat, 12 grams being carbs from natural sugars, and that's at a price of about $2.49 per gallon. But the thing people don't often talk about is, of all of those milk choices, traditional dairy has the most essential nutrients. So traditional dairy has about 9 to 13 essential nutrients based on the research that I did, and 9 of those nutrients are considered nutrients of concern in the American diet, or nutrients that we're not getting enough of. So you could get the most nutrients for the smallest price when you purchase milk at about $2.50 per gallon. Really quick, before we move on, I want to tell you how you can get a meal plan, recipes, a grocery list, and meal planning instructions totally free. All you have to do is click the link in the description to sign up. It's so simple, and it'll save you so much time and money when you're trying to eat healthy on a budget. If you've known me for any length of time, you would know that I kind of enjoy controversial topics. I mean, maybe a little. And this is definitely the most controversial of the topics I want to talk about today. So let's compare organic produce to conventional or non-organic produce. Now, it would be a very long, boring video if I were to compare every single piece of produce available to you as a consumer. So I'm just going to share a statement from Harvard University's medical school blog, where Stephanie Watson writes, researchers at Stanford University evaluated nearly 250 studies comparing the nutrients in organic versus traditional foods and the health outcomes of eating these foods. The researchers discovered very little difference in nutritional content. So now you might be thinking, so what? Does that mean that they're safe when it comes to exposure to different toxins and pesticide residues? Well, that's an awesome question. So some of you might be familiar with the Dirty Dozen list. It's a list of 12 fruits and vegetables that the Environmental Working Group, also known as the EWG, has the highest pesticide residue. So I wanted to pick 3 foods off this list that are pretty popular among consumers and figure out how many servings you would have to eat in one day to consume a concerning level of pesticide residue. What did I picked apples, celery, and spinach. So listen to this. You could consume 848 servings of apples in one day with no concern of having adverse effects, even if the apples had the highest level of pesticide residue ever recorded by USDA. You could consume 19,573 servings of celery in one day, even if the celery had the highest levels of pesticide residue ever recorded by USDA, with zero concern for having adverse effects. Lastly, you could consume 773 servings of spinach, again, highest pesticide levels ever recorded by USDA, no concern for having adverse effects. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but if you're eating 848 apples, or 19,000 servings of celery, or 700 servings of spinach, you're gonna have some other problems first before you ever have to worry about pesticide residue exposure. Now let's talk about fresh produce versus frozen produce. Even though you'd never find frozen celery, this is just what I have. I know a lot of people prefer the taste and flavor of fresh produce, and I'm with you. I love it too. But when you're going to cook it, saute it, add seasonings, add flavor, add it to soup, add it to a casserole, it may not matter really, because the flavor is going to kind of get covered up by the other ingredients you're adding to it. So I wanted to compare the price of common vegetables from our local grocery store to see which has a more affordable price. The fresh broccoli was $1.49 per pound, whereas the frozen was $1.09 per pound. Cauliflower was $2.69 per pound for fresh and $1.49 per pound for frozen. Corn was $1.99 a pound for fresh and 99 cents a pound for frozen. And green beans were also $1.99 a pound for fresh and 99 cents per pound for frozen. So you can probably guess the winner's frozen produce. I mean, it's packaged and frozen quickly after harvest to preserve the nutrients. So say that on here. Field to frozen for locked in freshness. And you could also add preserved nutrition. This is one of my favorite things to educate people about. Let's look at the difference between pork and poultry with no added hormones versus pork and poultry with added hormones. Guess what? You cannot purchase any pork and poultry in the United States with added hormones because it's been illegal to use them in pork and poultry production since the 1960s. So now I want to know, did I trick you with that title? I see this label so often in the grocery store, and it's usually accompanied by a higher price point. And honestly, I see it frequently at farmers markets too. Now, I don't think the farmers or producers at the farmers market have any ill intent. I think they simply just might not know that it's illegal to use added hormones in any pork and poultry production throughout the whole country. And so advertising that and claiming that it's worth more money because it doesn't have added hormones, they may not realize that really doesn't add any value to the customer. So now when you're shopping, you will know to make sure that you're looking for pork and poultry that's not charging you more money for a label that says no added hormones, because it's not really adding any value to you as the customer. A cheaper product also doesn't have added hormones. Last but not least, let's talk about almond and coconut flour versus traditional white or wheat flour. This is simply for the consumer who's trying to save money. If you're trying to get the most bang for your buck at the grocery store, you may want to consider traditional flour. Let's compare the nutritional value of regular flour to almond and coconut flour. This information is based on a 1/4 cup serving. Almond flour will have 180 calories, 5 grams of carbs, 15 grams of fat, 6 grams of protein, and for about $6.99 per pound. Coconut flour will have about 60 calories, 9 grams of carbs, 1.5 grams of fat, 3 grams of protein, for about $3.99 per pound. And lastly, traditional flour will have about 100 calories, 23 grams of carbs, 0 grams of fat, 3 grams of protein, with about 8 essential nutrients for 30 cents per pound. It's clearly the cheapest. It's a great option for someone who's trying to save money and add nutrients to their diet. So I hope you learned something in this video. I really enjoy making these for you. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to check out that free meal planner with your grocery list, your recipes for the week, and your meal prep instructions. All you have to do is click the link in the description. That's all for this week, and I'll see you next week.